I'm your host, Kinetic, and you're watching GameOnEnd. Hello and welcome. Okay, I know Shadowlands is a couple months away. We've got the Brutosaur mount going away. A lot of us are out there trying to find the best ways to maximize our profits for the time that we can play. And I know a lot of us have turned to gathering or crafting professions to try and eke that last bit of gold we need out. So today we're going to take a look at a few add-ons that are going to help us to do that better. Alright, so on this character here, I've picked up mining. This is a fresh profession, so we are going to start from scratch here. As always, we're going to use add-on control panel to enable and disable as we go. So let's take a look at the first add-on. Alright, so I think we're going to start simple and build up from there as we go. So let's start with the first add-on, Gathermate 2. Okay, now you have a choice to make here. Gathermate 2 has some databases that you can download into your setup for the game, and what it will do is fill in all of the nodes for you. We're not going to do that. We're just going to start fresh. Okay, so what Gathermate 2 does is simply keeps track of every place that you've found gathering nodes. So if you've got mining or herbalism, you'll collect, and now you'll see this little circle here on the mini-map, and that will let us know that we've found a monolite deposit at this spot. And so for future reference, we can simply fly around, and if we're looking to gather, we can see the spots on the map. As we slowly build out this database of spots, we can see where we've gone, and then we can determine, hey, what's the best path to fly around a zone to pick up these nodes. Okay, so we've got a storm silver deposit here, and we'll see it adds the circle to the mini map here again. And so now, if we take a look on our map here, we can see the two spots that we've mined. Okay, we've got a third one here. Okay, so this is dead simple. It's just a way to track where we found things, and so if we decide to spend an hour gathering, choose a zone that we want to gather in, and we can fly around and see the spots we've previously found ores, and that will help us to save a little bit of time. Instead of just randomly searching, you can maybe kind of choose a path to go and gather those things. So that leads us to our next add-on, which is called Routes. Now, Routes has a second add-on that you also want to grab, which is called Routes Import Export. So now that we have Routes installed, we can type /routes to bring up the options. So what Routes does is lets you draw on your world map or on your mini map lines. So you can create these routes that kind of connect the dots between different nodes that you've gathered from. So instead of just randomly flying, you can kind of look, once you've built out your Gathermate data, you can look and see if there's a good path that you can take around a zone that lets you hit the most nodes while not doubling back on top of yourself too much. But what we're going to do is, using the import and export module, it's going to let us import other people's routes. So we don't even have to create anything here. You don't have to really figure out how to do the waypoints and adding in all these nodes and stuff like that. All we're going to do is, by having this installed, be able to use our next add-on, which is called Worth It. Okay, so follow along with me here and I will connect the dots. We now have the add-on Worth It installed. So we have the minimap button that brings up the options here. The first thing you want to do is click here and go to Configuration. Now, by default, you need to have Trade Skill Master installed because that's where Worth It gets its pricing. You don't need to do anything with Trade Skill Master. It just needs to be installed and set up for your realm so that it can get pricing data. So the author recommends going with DB min buyout for current content materials and DB market for legacy content. Now, of course, you can adjust this to any of the Trade Skill Master price sources here. My one request for this add-on is that they would allow you to choose from your custom price sources. I will show you an example of why I wish you could do that in a second. But just so we understand worth it, now that we've got our price sources chosen, we can go back to the dashboard, and all this does is quickly lets us take a look at prices for our server for the top items that we can farm. So of course the highest price items here are some of the rare mounts that you can farm, but we're going to look specifically at a farm here for mining because that's the trade skill that we have on this character currently. Because we have routes and the import-export module installed, we now have the option to import a route here. So back to the example of why I wish you could do custom prices. This is it right here. If you are going with your realm's prices and you have a specific person or a couple of people that are trying to control certain items on the auction house, which in this case is cobalt ore, right? All it takes is a couple of people who constantly buy out all of the supply of something that there's just not a ton of, and they keep posting it for 1,000,000 gold per ore or whatever, then it completely throws off the numbers for the add-on. The only option I have here is to switch to the region values. Okay, so if we just switch over here from our local server's pricing to the region market average, and then we go back into this farm, and we'll now see that cobalt went down to a much more reasonable range here. So the problem is that you have to choose. If you want overall more accurate pricing, then you have to go with the region prices, which obviously like a single individual can't manipulate, but then it's not accurate pricing for your realm. If you want specific realm pricing, because let's just say that monolite ore regionally goes for 10,000, but on our server somebody, maybe we have a multi-boxer who just tanks the market on this ore, then this may not be worth farming on our specific server, but generically speaking for the region it may be a good farm. So that's my only complaint with worth it at the moment. We'll go back to the market pricing, and now we'll see that some of these things have adjusted here. So you do just have to make sure that you double check. So we can see here if we hover over it that the current min buyout on our server is 50 gold each, and I don't really want to have to do that math on that. So I would basically just reference that region one real quick. It didn't look like it was as great. It was about 6,000 gold per hour. So we're going to skip over that, and we're going to go to a current content farm here. So we'll look at monolite ore, which is in the zone that we're currently in, and we'll go ahead and import this route. Okay, you can rename this to whatever you like, but we're just going to stick with the worth it BFA ores. Okay, so now that we've imported this route, let's bring up routes again, /routes, and we'll look at our current routes, and we have the Tiergard Sound one that we imported here, and here's the options for it. So if we decide we want to remove this route, we can simply delete it here. Now we have the option for the line settings. Okay, it's got this bright green color here, and we can see a little preview of what it's going to look like here on the mini-map, and you can adjust this to anything you like here. Okay, you can also temporarily hide it if you'd like, and then you can adjust the width of the line on the mini-map. Okay, and we'll see on the mini-map there. So if you want to make it a little bit bigger so that it's easier to see on the mini-map. And then we also have the options for the world map. And then we have some optimization settings here. We're not going to adjust any of this, but it's here. Okay, and then we have some manual editing. Now, the manual editing we will get to in a little bit. Okay, but so far we haven't done anything really. We've just installed GatherMate so that we can see our nodes that we've gathered. We've installed routes with the import module, and that lets us bring these routes in from Worth It. And then we've installed Worth It along with Trade Skill Master for pricing to know which farms are the best farms to do on our current server. So we can see we've got a route here. Now, we run into our next problem, which is that you don't necessarily want to fly around with your world map open. I mean, we can see through this one. I've got Leatrix map installed here, and it lets me choose some fading or move it around, but it's still not ideal. It kind of is in the way and is tough to see where we're going and see what we're gathering. But if we close this, then we just have our mini map, which is okay, depending on, if you have an add-on that kind of makes your mini map a little bit bigger or lets you move it somewhere that's visible. If you don't mind constantly looking back and forth up into the corner, kind of keeping an eye out for mining nodes or whatever you're farming, then, it might be manageable like this. But as you can see, like I even just there, not paying attention to seeing, if you're running into trees or running into whatever. Okay, so we've flown around for a minute here. We've followed this route for a little bit. We've picked up a few ores here, and we've got the nodes on the map. Okay, and of course in the GatherMate 2 add-on, you can adjust the size of those if you'd like them bigger. I don't really like them to clutter up the map, so I've shrunk them down a tiny bit. This is working okay, but it's a little tough to kind of see where we're going, and that leads us to our next add-on. Farm HUD is probably the most popular of this type of add-on. Let's take a look at this one first. Okay, so as I said before, our only options up till now are to either fly around and follow the minimap or to fly around with the world map open, which neither is a great solution. What Farm HUD does is gives you the ability to basically take your minimap and put it down into the middle of your screen. It blows it up to a giant view. I know it doesn't look like it right now, but this is actually the minimap. So you can see it's disappeared here from the corner and it's now here in the middle. So let's go ahead and bring up with right click the options here, and we will see that we've got the general options here. So this is whether we want the minimap icon to be shown here, and this is the scale of the overall HUD. This is the background of the minimap. So we can see here that we've got our minimap. This is actually what's happened. It's completely blown up here. But obviously we don't want that, so we leave it fully transparent. Then we have the scale of the text on everything. We have the player dot, which is basically here in the center. Right now I just have it on the small player arrow from the game, very small there, but you can adjust that to a large one or to different dots here. Then you also have the option to change the scale of basically everything here. You have the scale for the text, you have the scale for the symbols, and then we have quest arrow options here. Now this is the experimental module. You can turn this off if you care or don't care, but this helps if you have issues with when you're tracking a quest. You'll get the little gold arrow that normally is on your minimap pointing you the direction you need to head to complete that quest, and it can be a little annoying when it's here on this screen. So you can play with these options here to get that to go away. Then we have the gathering circle, which is this outer ring. Now what this is it's showing you the radius of your gathering skills view. So this is the distance that you can see nodes at. So as long as you are keeping your route in this ring, then you should be able to see any of the nodes here. If you don't want that, of course you can turn it off because all we're doing is following the route. But I think it's a little bit helpful. I've just reduced the opacity here of it, so we just need it to barely be visible, and that's fine for us. Then we have the direction. I don't specifically need those. You can turn those on or off if you want, but you can also just lower the opacity of those as well, and then you can move those further away. I find it a little less distracting to just scoot them out and make them a little bit more see-through, and that's good for me. Coordinates here, same thing. You can turn those off or on if you want. Then we have the time. I don't specifically need to see the time here, but here's the settings for that. Move it to the bottom if you like, or have it on the top. The on-screen buttons. Now these are the options here to enable or disable the mouse, to make Farm HUD go in and out, bring up settings and stuff like that if you want to move those buttons to the bottom. And then of course, same thing, you can move how far away those are and the opacity of them. Now here is the main options for what you're going to see here. So when you zoom out, Farm HUD can either just follow the settings that you have for the minimap. So whatever you have visible in the tracking menu is going to be visible here, or you can have it do its own settings. And so what I've done here is gone through and chosen the things that I want to show when I'm out in this view, which right now is just the minerals, and then everything else I want hidden. I don't want to see battle pets. I don't want to see see flight masters or any of that stuff. Some of the things I have set to just follow whatever the settings are for the mini-map, and then other things I want hidden. And same thing here for townsfolk. I just have all of those hidden because I don't need to see stable masters or mailboxes or any of that stuff. I want it to be simple and clear here. Now, lastly here is the key bindings. This is if you would like to bind a key to have Farm HUD pop in or out from the big view here or back down into your minimap. I don't need that. I don't mind just clicking the minimap button here to turn that off or on. So once you've got that set up in a visual way that you like, and you've got the key binding set up however you would like that to be, it's now pretty straightforward. Okay, we've got our routes line here. We will fly for a few minutes and take a look and see. Okay, so we can see here, same as it was on the mini-map, we can see those gathermate spots are being added. Okay, so we can see here, this is so simple now. We don't have to be bouncing around. We can see right in our view what we're looking for. We can see our route clearly. We can see the radius of our gathering ability. And we can see here that we've just gathered along this path and started filling out these nodes. So once you've filled out your data a bit, and you start seeing, patterns, or you start seeing things that maybe you would like to adjust, that's where you can get into customizing these routes. Okay, so let's say that we have decided we want to cut a section out of a route. Okay, so we bring this up here and we can see the edit route manually options here for this route. Okay, so if you select the route that you want to adjust, click into this edit route manually, you'll see the options here. Okay, you click the edit route button, then it will bring up the world map with the route drawn on it, and you can drag nodes to position them. You can left click to add a node, you can right click to delete, and then you can hit save or cancel. So let's say we want to edit this. Okay, so we move these options out of the way so we can see it here, and we can zoom in and we can see here's the route that's been programmed. But let's just say that, maybe in a bigger zone, we're not even completing the route before things start respawning, or there's sections that we would like to pick up that we're not covering. So all you have to do is, let's say we want to cut this leg out of the loop. All we have to do is grab these nodes, okay, and drag them in like this, and that is now savable, and it will adjust that. Let's say we would like to get rid of this whole extra section on this island here, okay? We can simply right click the large nodes, okay, and maybe even do that and simplify that, right? If you even want to make these routes a little more straightforward, right? So you can basically adjust these any way that you would like and then hit save, and it will now save that route how you've adjusted it. So to me, rather than creating these new routes, which are not that hard to do, you simply just need to start a new route there and start clicking in and adding those nodes that you would like, and then save it and name it, and you have a new route there. But with the Worth It add-on and the importing, I don't really find any reason to create my own routes. Like, this is pretty straightforward. I can just find a farm that I would like to do. If that's herbalism or fishing or anything, you basically just click on these, and anything that you can fly around a zone and gather, you can see that there's an option to import a route here, Now, of course, if something's in a dungeon, there's not going to be a way to do a route for that. So those you'll just have to basically run through the dungeons or do on your own. But for any of these other ones here, I mean, I can basically grab a route and import it and then just fly into those zones and done it. I grabbed a couple of other ones here just to test this out, and so far everything that I've tried has worked really well. So I grabbed this route in Oldham to do some ore out here, and I grabbed a couple in a couple of different zones, and every one of the routes that I've imported have worked really well. That all works great, but let's say that FarmHUD might be a little bit too complicated for what you're looking for. Let's take a look at one more, maybe a little lesser known, a little lesser used add-on, but this one's called Farmer. Okay, so now that we have Farmer installed, we can type /farmer and then space radar, and you'll see we get the same thing as FarmHUD here. Now, this is much simpler. There are not really many options for this. We can't, change how it looks or the scale of it or any of that. We do have the problem that I mentioned on FarmHUD of the quest arrow here. This is our player arrow. This is the direction to the quest that we're tracking. You also can't control the other things, whether it shows or hides the townsfolk that you have currently tracked. It's completely just following the settings that you have for your minimap. But, if you don't want all the extra options of FarmHUD, then this one, is straightforward, just works out of the box. You use that / command, farmer space radar, and that will give you this HUD here. And it still works just the same as FarmHUD. But if we bring up the options, we will see that this add-on actually gives us a lot more settings here. Now, the first thing we saw there was that little gathering toast. And we'll do this one more time just so we can see that again. Okay, so if you watch here, just above my character frame here, you'll see that this is letting us know we got a skill up in our mining, and then it shows us that we looted some monolite ore. If we type in /farmer, we'll get the options here. These are the settings for that little toast loot track thing that popped up there. You can adjust the scale of the icon for the item that you looted, the font size for the text, how long that displays for, and then the outline mode just makes it a little more readable. You can also move the display or reset the position if you lose track of it. And then here's the settings that you can adjust for what you see. Now, of course, you can just play with these and see how that looks. These are the settings that I ended up liking. Then you also have other things that it's going to show. Do you want it to show when you gain honor, when you gain currencies? And then do you want it to show when you loot other items? And then what the minimum rarity is. So if you only want to know when you loot rare items, if you want it to always show reagents, quest items, if you loot recipes, and then you can also do a custom list of items that you're looking for. So let's say if you're searching for a specific item, I don't know, maybe in a dungeon or something, or if you're looking for certain gems out of some of these mining nodes or something like that, then you can just have it show when you gather those items. You can check that here. You can type in their ID there. Then you also have some options here. If you're out gathering and you're fishing, this can automatically hide your health bars. Then this also has the fast auto loot option. Now, this is something that most people install a separate add-on for. This is like the faster gathering. It's a nice feature that this is built into this add-on here. Then we also have, if we're showing money that we gather, which is separate from the currencies. This is like tokens and coins and stuff like that. Then we also have if we gather reputation and maybe a minimum quantity for that. And then we also have whether we show those skill ups in our professions here. Very simple, but I really like this gathering thing, and we will take a look at the faster looting. So if we turn on auto loot here, okay, so we will turn off the faster looting. Okay, so this is auto loot on, but the fast loot is off. Okay, so we can see that that took a little less than a second there. But we still got the loot frame that popped up. But now let's turn the fast loot on and see the difference here. Okay, so you see we didn't even see the loot window pop up. It just went into our inventory and was instantly ready to move on. We'll see that again. Okay, so the cool thing about it is that A, it lets you move just that little bit quicker, but B, you don't have the loot window popping up or having to wait for that. You simply can just gather and instantly move on. Okay, so if we take a look at these options again, now that we've seen that pop up a couple times, we can see why this is nice, because we can see our total count here, we can see the bag count for those items. So if you're out and say you're wanting to craft a couple of armor items, you know, to sell on the auction house or something like that, and you're just needing to gather a certain quantity of this ore, well then instead of having to check your bags constantly or do like crazy things like weak auras or dragging it to your bar so that you can see the quantity, with this little toast pop-up loot window there, we can see at an instant how many we have and how many we gathered from that current node. And so if you're just trying to gather up, say, 80 of this ore or whatever, then you can instantly see when you have the quantity that you were trying to gather and know that you're done, with that session. Or if you're just trying to get to an even number, say you're trying to get to a stack of 200 of something to put them up on the auction house, then you don't have to keep checking for those quantities. You can just see that you've hit the total that you want to do and you can be done for the day. Okay, so we'll look one more time here. We can see, if you watch here, you'll see how many we got and then the total quantity we have there. So we gathered 3 and we have 58 total. Okay, we can see we have 58 here in our bags. So like I said, it's just a nice quick way to keep up with how much you've done here, and is an easy way to make some goals for yourself. I enjoy knowing when I'm done. A lot of people will just go out and say, hey, I'm just going to do this for an hour, or I'm going to do this for, till I have 400 of this item. For me, I like just setting a simple goal of I'm going to get back up to a couple of stacks of this. It doesn't matter how long it takes me. I'm just going to go out and get that quantity, and then, I'm done with gathering that. But either way, both of these add-ons work great, but they both kind of have some features that the other one doesn't. So for me, this is great. I've got a nice simple way to track what I'm gathering, how much I've done, stuff like that. But if for you like to actually keep a finer track of what you're gathering and maybe your gold per hour, then that leads to this last add-on here called Gathering. Okay, so what Gathering does is gives us this little button here. Now, this is just something that you can drag around, and you can type in /gathering to get this here. Now, you can enable or disable whatever you would like to track here. So right now for us, we're only tracking ore, okay? And so we're just gonna move this a little bit out of the way. And right now, it's not doing anything because we haven't gathered anything. But I'm going to show you one other trick before we get going with gathering. Now, you may not want to have both of these installed, but I'm going to show you why I've chosen to actually run both of these add-ons. The reason I like both of these add-ons is because they both work together. I prefer the HUD of Farm HUD because it's much more customizable. I can make it look the way that I want it to look. I get the faster looting. I also get the loot tracker here, and then I also get those extra couple little options of seeing what I loot. Okay, so we've done 10 minutes of flying around, and you can see now this has given us a timer here. We can hover over it, and it gives us a little drop down here and told us what we've gathered. Okay, so it says we've got, 8 storm silver ore, 17 monolite ore, and 1 platinum ore, and it's giving us a rough estimate of how many we would gather per hour at this pace. So this is saying, that we would get about 100 monolite per hour at this pace, and then shows us the total gathered in the 10 minutes, which is 26 items, and then that estimate would be about 140 per hour. Now, of course, these numbers are going to change as we fly around more, and the more you start and stop, more you have to fight while you go. Of course, doing things like getting the Coltiran mining or herbalism or whatever, the enchants for your gloves would help speed that up. If you get one of the mounts where you can't be knocked off, or you do the hoof plates or any of that kind of stuff where you can't be dazed, or don't get dismounted while you're gathering, all of those things, of course, are going to greatly increase your time of getting around. But anytime you need to take a break, you just left click on it. That will pause the timer. And then if you want to start a new session, you can right click and it clears it and goes back to 0. So you don't necessarily need the loot feed here and this, but to me, getting the faster looting, if you're going to install an add-on to do the faster looting anyways, I would go with the Farmer add-on because it just does so many other things that are much cooler in addition to having the faster looting. And then this Gathering add-on is just great to me. To have a timer that can start and stop with just a click, you can reset it anytime you need to. You can filter out the items that you want to track that you're gathering with just a simple click of the button. You know, to me, this setup that I've cobbled together here, again, you know, just feels great. It's very unintrusive. I mean, you can see here, even if you hide everything that you can, you know, you just have a clean interface here. Not a lot of things, you know, you could hide these, you know, direction markers, the coordinates. You could literally just have a clean field of view here with just your route that you're following. You can see the nodes, you can see where you've gathered things previously, and simply, like, you know, you just know once you start filling out this gathering data, really lets you customize these routes to however you would like. I mean, to me, you know, this is great. I can quickly look into a zone and see the different routes that I've built out over time, and with Worth It here, you can quickly just find a new farm that you want to do. Now, of course, Worth It, we're going to do its own video because this thing is for sure deserving of its own video. There's so many things that you can do here. You can also import the author's farms and just so many things that you can look for here. But, you know, even just having this ability to just say whatever profession you currently have, or, you know, you want to grab a new gathering profession and simply look through here and see the breakdown. You know, some of these things, if you do the little drop down here, you can see that the value isn't purely from the ore that you're getting or the herbs or whatever it is. You know, a lot of these things have the chance to drop some of these other things. You can filter these out if you like, and that, you know, will let you just much more directly go for the ore that you're going for, or, you know, whatever you're gathering in your case. But I like to see, you know, the other potential things that we can get from these. And we can see that some of these farms, you know, include things like arcane crystals. You know, these are all great things to go for. You can see the average sale rate here. So if you want to weed out the things that don't sell as quickly, you know, like obsidian ore might be, you know, good gold per hour, but it might take longer to sell. And so if you're not interested in those things, you can just simply look here and find the fastest selling items. So you may say, I'm okay with making about 10,000 gold per hour, that this stuff will clear out very quickly, and you can quickly look. You can see the minimum buyout here. I have that shown in Trade Skill Master in the tooltips. You can watch one of my previous videos on that if you want to learn how to do those settings there. The combination of all of these add-ons comes up to something to me that's so cool that I can just quickly find something new that I want to farm that's worth a lot of gold, can import a route, and then just start flying around and gathering. And, you know, once you have these add-ons installed and set up, I mean, we're literally talking about a matter of like a minute here to find a new farm that you may not have tried before. You go out, you know, gather it for an hour or 2 hours, put those items up, see how quickly they sell on your realm, and then you know, like, do I want to do that route again, or do I not want to do that route again? And, you know, you can delete the routes that you don't care about, or you can even hide them. You know, if you go into the routes here, you can go to your routes and you can find something that you don't want to see anymore, and you can hide the route. And so that will quickly get it out of your view, then it's gone, you know. And so if you decide a week from now, you say, hey, you know what, I want to try that monolite ore route again, you quickly just come in here, click into the options, unhide it, and away you go. So I hope this helps you do it. I hope this helps you to reach those gold goals and to buy that long boy, or to buy Shadowlands, or to just pay for that game time. There's a ton of great farms that you can do out there in this game, and these add-ons are going to help you to find those farms and do them efficiently and quickly. So thanks again for staying to the end, and I hope to see you in the next one. That will do it for this episode. If you've enjoyed this, remember, pressing the like button is absolutely free. Subscribe and stay tuned for more Game on End.